Ladies and gentlemen, it's the Big Jiu-Jitsu Show. Remember the Podbros Podcast Network. Don't forget to go to podbros.com. Find yourself another episode that you want to listen to. And don't forget to check out our sponsors, Trap and Roll Soap Company. Use code BEEFSQUATCH. Save some money on buying some soap because let's face it, you're getting nasty when you roll. You got to wash it off. Also check out Tape Armor as well as Rolls Gear and find all of our old episodes as well as some of our own gear on bjjshow.com. I'm Rob, and I had the honor and pleasure of having Andrew Smith on the show again, and we talked about his new project. Maybe not new, because the guy's been recording videos and helping out the BJJ community for a while now by making videos and posting them up and showing just kind of different moves that work for him. And he put it all together and created his own video library written with articles. Like you just have to listen to it and check it out for yourself because it is a really, really cool system. And I hope you guys really enjoy this episode because I had a great time talking to him. And don't forget to review us, subscribe to us, and we'll see you at the next episode. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's the Big Jiu-Jitsu Show. I'm Rob, and today I have a very special guest. I have Andrew Smith. You guys may remember him from a previous episode of the podcast. We did an interview with him, and he's here today to talk about a really, really cool video library for jiu-jitsu that he has started. So first off, Andrew, thanks for coming on the show, man.
Hey, I really appreciate it, Rob. Thanks for the opportunity. I always am grateful that the jiu-jitsu community is so awesome. We kind of support one another, help each other out. And I'm not going to look a gift horse in the mouth, so to speak. I think this is a really awesome thing that we have going on with our community. And as it expands, it's important that we kind of keep it that way too.
Yeah, I agree with that. But I'm also really excited to talk about your website that you started, your BJJ Path. And for our listeners, I would suggest highly checking it out because, I'll let Andrew get in all the details of it, but I'll talk about the one thing that really struck me as something that helped piece everything together because I've seen some of the other video encyclopedias that have, I was like, oh shit, what do I need to do? Like, X guard sweep looks really cool. Let me look at that. And you pull it up and it's just the video. You actually go into detail with your articles talking about each move and then saying like, well, this could happen. And you actually have a link to a supplementary move in the chain to that, which I thought was just amazing and really helpful.
Well, I'm really glad to hear that. The first part, the text alongside the video, I think it's going to help a certain group of people, and I hear a lot of feedback from people who like that. Some people I know just watch the videos, so the nice thing is that you can sort of take it or leave it if you aren't worried about reading the text that accompanies the video. A lot of people will watch a video 3 or 4 times to kind of get all the details or at least clips of the video. And I mean, we're talking about, these are on average probably like a minute and a half, or a minute long, something like that. These aren't super duper long videos. I've learned my lesson from observing my millennial friends and things of that nature that, attention spans have gotten shorter and shorter. And I for one, appreciate it. I understand that. I've always been a little bit hyperactive with my learning style in a lot of ways. I've learned only recently tried to start learning how to do deep work and focus and things like that. Right. On the other hand, I think you and I are of a similar time scale we've sort of seen, the internet really kind of take hold, and right this second generation is sort of upon us. So I'm embracing it. I like it. I like the idea of getting what you want right now. On the other hand, being able to have additional information at the ready is really nice too. So that's the idea behind it. If you want to kind of learn a little more about the stuff, you can sort of read as you go. And you already mentioned the stuff on the right-hand column. If you're on a laptop or desktop that follows you along,
yeah.
The general idea there is you can sort of transition to something else that's very similar. This isn't like machine learning's not doing this. This isn't like AI. This is like my brain says, a good transition from here is this. So like for instance, if you're doing I'm looking at one right now, how to take the back with the Kimura half guard bottom. A nice transition is Kimura attacks from the bottom half guard, where you just do the basic series of kind of like, here's how you can finish the Kimura. If this doesn't work, the person's holding on and so on and so forth. So you sort of have a relatively organic time sink, a way to sort of like, you get in here and it's a rabbit hole that you can sort of go down by exploring. But it's, I hope it's a useful rabbit hole. It's not just sort of a random, more Wikipedia style where you hop from one topic to another. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but if you're a little more focused, the transitions off on the side and the defense on the side, that sort of is intended to guide you that way, so that you can figure out not just how to go to a different position, but also how to defend the particular thing. So like a defense for a Kimura is included in this particular tutorial that I'm referencing right now.
Right.
So hopefully everybody's brain works a little different, and I'm constantly trying to take feedback from users. I feel like that's the thing that's going to really make this better is listening to people telling me what is working for them, what's not working, what they'd like to see, that kind of stuff. Got like 35 pages of feedback already, and been able to enact some of it one piece at a time.
No, I mean, it's a good system, and the reason why I feel it's a good system is, like you said, you can do the Wikipedia way, you can do the just watch the video way and go down the rabbit hole. But it's for people like me, I don't know. Are we considered millennials? Because I've heard so many different where the cutoff on the year is for when you were born. Like I don't know where I fall.
I'm firmly in Gen X by a couple years. I think if you were born in 1980 or later, you definitely count as a millennial. But I don't know, man. I'm not really super familiar with all this technical jargon.
we had like a real serious conversation about it at work, and I was like, "Oh shit, am I a millennial? Like, what does that mean? Like, do I get to change the way I?" But I think it's always going to be like, "Oh, this younger generation type thing." But you are correct. I mean, the content that people put out, it's like it's for Instagram or it's for short Facebook videos or stuff like that, and being able to put the technique into a short period or like a short video, have an article that references it, and then for people like me who always have the what if question, not the real crazy ones, but like hey, what happens if somebody blocks it? What can you do from here? You say like, well, hey, if somebody steps back, you can actually even turn this into like a what is it? The one I was just looking at was the doing a Kimura to defend against a takedown. So I was like, oh yeah, cool, that is cool. But yeah, and then I think also kind of starting Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu on the old Matt Serra basic DVDs and videos, and it taken like you had hours upon hours of content, and you're just it was like a whole series of explanations in the YouTube videos nowadays. Well, not nowadays, but kind of in the beginning that were 20 minutes long, talking about one move and explanations and everything. Like the way this is broken down helps out so much more.
And on VHS, right? So
oh, yeah.
I mean, really, if you wanted to watch and learn a lesson, you'd be using the pause button, the rewind button, stop. It was not the most conductive to learning. I think that having instant access to information is amazing. I mean, even outside of BJJ Path and other video subscription websites, if you just go on YouTube, you can find more or less what you're looking for. But it sort of goes back to me in my head to the VHS thing. You can find what you're looking for, but how long is it going to take you? And what is the source going to be like? What's it going to be coming from? Like, do you trust the source? Is it a good one? A lot of the time, if you're a purple or brown belt, I think you can sort of, you have your built-in BS detector. You can kind of say, well, this is garbage. I'm not going to watch this. This is amazing. I'm going to hop in here. But if you're a white or a blue belt, it might be a little bit more difficult to kind of discern what's garbage and what's not, but more to the point, like if you want to find something on YouTube, like I said, man, you can find it. There's definitely how to do X, Y, and Z on YouTube, but you might spend a great deal of time trying to figure out how to do one move instead of just kind of sort of being able to teleport there instantly.
Yeah. Which does make it a lot better because, like you said, there were no timestamps on the back of anything. The DVDs are better because you could switch through the chapters, but I remember even at my old Taekwondo school, we had the chemo fighting series. If I remember that,
Yeah.
probably the best intro of any martial arts instructional video of all time. And
I remember he kind of looks at the camera like really creepily at the end.
He's like holds the guy down. He's like, what is he like? Almost like a neon belt. Or it's like he was on full mount punching the guy and just looks up and like, oh shit, man, this guy's crazy, but maybe he'll teach something. And then like you said, I had no idea, so I'm like, yeah, there's probably some good stuff. And he did fight in the UFC in the early days, but nowadays, like you said, everybody. It can be hard for newcomers to really tell if it is just trash or like, something quality, because there are people like still not into the jiu-jitsu community. I saw a pretty interesting interaction in Iceland with a young white belt lady go up to Carlos Machado and ask him how long he'd been trained jiu-jitsu and if he'd just started, because you don't know don't know everybody in it. But yeah, so I think this being reputable as well as it being something that people can read and watch quickly, I think you pretty much have a recipe for success as far as this video service is concerned.
Well, that's the hope, I mean, and I would like to reach a lot of people with it eventually, but I want to do it, the right way. I think that it's important to sort of that iterative process I was describing earlier, listening to the feedback from people and being able to actually get the feedback into the website, like updating it as we go along. I've got a good engineer working on it, Zach Becker. He's been with us for a while now. Since the very beginning, we talked about laying this out and the methods to do it. And so he's been very diligent about that kind of stuff for, over a year now. This project's been in the works and it's been developing. So it's sort of like watching a little kid kind of like start crawling around and maybe starting to walk now, maybe just falling over a lot, and that's sort of where we're at right now. It's the fumbling and falling phase where, we've got it. We're constantly trying to, figure out what the next improvement needs to be. And meantime, making sure all the bugs are out and everything is still working properly and all that kind of stuff. And I mean, it functions well,
Yeah.
The site functions well. It gets you from point A to point B very quickly. I think intuitively, you can find what you're looking for, but I have a pretty strong bias there because I created the functionality, the layout, the direction and stuff like that. So, I mean, obviously for me, it makes a ton of sense. But I listen to people again, and I get good ideas from people. And so, like the fundamental groups menu, which is generally a pretty good beginning point. If you sort of know where you want to go, you would click through and you would say, okay, I'm trying to find, I don't know, like a heel hook, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I click into submissions, I go to leg locks, and then I can go into the heel hooks category. So that's all really well and good. But then you get some sort of interesting things like passing the guard is a really good one that's been brought up relatively recently. So I categorize that under positions, and we go positions, guard, passing the guard, right?
Yeah.
But for some folks, it's not as logical because a position sort of sounds static and passing the guard is an action,
Yeah.
And so it's just fun to think about because it's almost like you're just doing an exercise in categorization, an exercise in logic over and over again. The problem that's been solved by like lots and lots of different people over the years, but not just in terms of like websites, website design and things like that, but I mean like, scientists categorizing various different things, hierarchical categorization of, genus and species and kingdom and all that kind of stuff, phylum, class, order, all of that stuff is sort of, it's arbitrary and it's fluid, and you do the best you can with it based on what makes the most sense. And those things tend to evolve over time too, not just the positions of jiu-jitsu, whether we consider something like half guard. Do you consider half guard to be a type of open guard, or is it its own entity? That's kind of a tougher question than it looks at it. Looks at it in the beginning. I chose the path of like there's either closed guard or open guard because it's very simple that way. If your ankles are crossed behind the person, then it's closed guard, and if they're not, then it's open guard. And everything falls into open guard if that's not the case. That's just my decision though, and that's the decision. Ultimately, this is a website like this kind of has to represent the mind of the person creating and categorizing it to some degree, and that's inevitable. We can't really get away from that. So this is a weird, creepy look into my jiu-jitsu mind, I guess.
So you get to see more of Andrew than just the move set. Kind of see how it works. Oh yeah, not in a weird way, not at all. Something I was thinking about, I want to talk about was, so you've been putting out videos for a very long time. They're all informative, and at the beginning we talked about, like, you had lessons learned from, like, hey, the millennials need to see like a minute or two of move, and then we're good. Did you have to go back and cut down some videos for this, or reshoot videos, or like, was there any modification you had to do just to kind of make everything fit together better?
Yeah. So some of my own videos are just too long for me talking in class, but generally over the years I've sort of pared that down. I've learned also that the in-room, in-class instruction for me, showing a move from maybe 2, maybe 3 times. It sort of depends on the complexity of the move. Highlight 1 or 2 different things each time you show it. Try to point out the 3 key details of the move or whatever. That's all good, and doing it relatively briskly seems to work best for students, so that you don't really have everybody sitting around for too long.
Yeah.
Because I think, like, the classroom itself, when you're in there, I mean, you're there to work out, you're there to train, right? And that includes drilling. Drilling is part of your training. You're not really there to sit around and look at your instructor for too long,
No.
I think that a lot of instructors tend to fall into the trap of, sort of like enjoying the sound of their own voice, right? You're kind of out there and you're like, man, look how smart I am. I know this detail, I know that detail. This is amazing. But you could, on the other hand, you could say, what do the students actually need, right?
Yeah.
Well, they need kind of an overview of the move. Then they need maybe a deep dive into 1 or 2 details. But then they need to go do the move themselves and make their own mistakes. And then maybe I can walk around and help them with 1 or 2 additional things. But for the most part, they've got it, right?
Yeah.
They're going to sort of figure it out on their own. If they're white belts, they need more guidance. If they're blue belts, they're doing okay. If they're purple belts, they probably got it after the first couple times, so you can do a little bit more advanced stuff. But you don't really get to gauge that across the World Wide Web. It's a little different. So the slices work much better. But I'll give you another example is Richard Salamone, who's a very high-level wrestler. He's like probably close to 60 years old now. Rich, if you're listening, I'm sorry. If you're not 60, I'm really especially sorry. But he's a monster. He's just a monster on the mat. He's a brown belt in jiu-jitsu. Been training for like 20 years now. Wrestled his whole lifetime. Like, he's just a monster. He's only like 120 pounds, 115 pounds, really little guy. So naturally very technical. Olympic alternate wrestler, 9-time national champion, just ridiculous, credentialed in wrestling. And he shows wrestling basically for jiu-jitsu in this series that he put out several years ago. And he wanted to release it on like DVD, and I think he ended up doing that. But it wasn't, super duper well marketed. Maybe the time wasn't great either, because, jiu-jitsu is probably like 10 or 20 times more popular now than it was even 10 years ago, I think.
Oh, I would say for sure.
So,
absolutely.
I mean, it's crazy. The exponential growth is ridiculous. But this video that Richard said, let's make a tutorial with it, go for it. He gave me the blessing for it. It was like a 10-minute video. And it's on the front headlock. And it's great. I mean, the content is amazing. The information that's in there is terrific. But I broke this one down into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 videos. It's just called Front Headlock Entry and Control. And, I didn't use the whole 10-minute video. It's just really, really a lot of chopping and sort of like clipping, I guess, putting, trimming, if you want to use the YouTube nomenclature, taking a little piece of it. But I think, I find that about a minute is a really good time slot for something like that. And if you're doing a tutorial like this, the great thing is you can sort of say, here's the first part of the move. Let's really focus in and zero in on what that is, Here's the second part and here's the third part. Like if it's a submission, maybe here's the catch and here's the finish or something, right? Here's if the person tries to escape, You don't have to show it all in one video. Henry Gracie is great. I love the guy in a lot of ways. I love a lot of what he does, but ain't nobody got time for that, like nobody's going to sit through 25 minutes of, whatever it is. I mean, granted, after the first 5 minutes, I've got my credit card out and I want to purchase whatever it is that he's selling, but I just don't always have the energy and the time to get through that. So yeah, absolutely, man. Breaking these videos up, it's been an interesting process for me, and I've been forced to learn about things that I haven't been learning about so much, like editing videos, cleaning them up a little bit, making them look less, so a lot of the time you can make a really high level professional video, but I've focused a lot more on the content in the beginning here with the website. Maybe eventually we'll reshoot a bunch of these videos, but to be honest, man, I've gotten like lots and lots of feedback, and none of it has been about the video quality. I was astounded by that. These are just kind of like, for the most part, candid classroom videos from instruction that takes place in the gym, not just at my gym, at other gyms too, but it works. It has like a different kind of a feeling than some of the other websites. It's a warm feeling. It feels like you're in the classroom, sort of, with the students in there. And I don't really want to change that, if I don't have to. Maybe we'll just sort of do over time, higher quality approaches to that exact sort of same idea.
And you were talking about like the video quality stuff. I mean, if the content's good, people will still watch it anyways. You know what I mean? Like, they're not gonna be, oh, this is clearly filmed in like 26 FPS, not 24, like the standard, whatever movie, theater FPS it is that they run. But no, I mean, the only thing I can think of that would ever cause problems like that big John Danaher leg lock system spectacle where his audio was just so off nobody could hear him talking. And
yes. And that's much more of an issue when you we've actually had a few videos, because again they're classroom videos, right?
Yeah.
And I've tried them out, and then people are like, the sound is just no good on this. So then that's when we'll go and we'll prioritize a reshoot on those videos.
So we were talking before also about the Chemo amazing street fight, learn how to be a badass video. Are there any guilty pleasure like martial art technique videos that you've seen that you just like will watch over and over again, or just like they're just good for entertainment value? Is there like anything out there kind of you just look at and you're like, dude, we're not doing that whatsoever, like that style at all?
Oh man, that's a really good question. I don't know about guilty pleasures necessarily, but I mean, you have to harken back to the Mario Sperry stuff, right? Like the Master series with Murillo, the first, first of all, like a lot of people that watch that, they see the, all the jokes about the, I wake up and I'm in Murillo's guard and I don't know how I got here and stuff like that. Ridiculous, utterly ridiculous. But, man, those videos really set the standard for jiu-jitsu, instruction. There was a few videos that were good that were out before that. They were decent, but there was nothing like what Sperry brought to the market at the time. And this is like late 90s, there was not really good quality instruction on De La Riva guard, for instance. There was kind of maybe a very quick intro to it on a couple of videos. Then there was like how to do an armbar from the guard in the Sperry series. I remember it was like, he called it an advanced move, and I was like, why are you calling that an advanced move? And then I watched, and I was like, oh, because there's lots and lots of details that, a lot of people don't really get in the beginning. So the Sperry stuff, I guess, is it's tough to call it a guilty pleasure anymore. It's more of a nostalgic kind of a look back, I guess. As far as guilty pleasure stuff, I mean, I'm a sucker for this isn't exactly instructional stuff, but like any of the old either Gracie challenge matches, where it's just very straight up style versus style, or or even early UFC, or just generally like MMA, not even Pride, like before Pride, like Japan Valley Tudo Open and Shuto, some of the early stuff. Pancrase is super fun. I don't know if that counts as guilty pleasure either, though, honestly, but it's so much more fun to watch, than like modern day MMA. For me, modern day MMA is sort of like everybody's got the same style, they're all doing the same stuff. They're playing, everybody's following the Greg Jackson's playbook, like here's how you win round one, here's how you win round two, you have to be on the feet and backing away instead of moving forward, and you have to get them to chase you, and I don't know, it just kind of makes for like a homogeneous fight experience. Whereas like women's MMA to me is more like where MMA in general was maybe like 15 years ago. So it's considerably more exciting. There's a lot more dynamic stuff going on. A lot more people are good at one thing and not as good at something else. And they don't quite have the strategy developed yet for, or at least it doesn't seem like everybody's doing the same exact strategy to me. Or maybe it's a lot more like early men's MMA Japan, right? There was crazy cool fights in Japan, and just the style of fights was very different than it was in the UFC, even in the early days.
They pretty much would just be like, yeah, we don't care. What are you, a boxer? Okay, you're going to fight this kung fu guy. No weight class, just, that's who you're fighting. Like, they were, a lot of the early MMA stuff, that is stuff I enjoyed watching too, because like you watch the early UFCs as well, you're like, who's this guy? He's a guy who's wearing one boxing glove, and then who's this guy? Oh, he's a sumo wrestler, and then this guy's from Ranger School, and then this guy has like a super deadly like ninjutsu, like whatever, man. It's just everybody came together. I was gonna say like my guilty pleasure. I think I've talked about it on the show before. It's just like anytime I see it on Facebook, I have to stop and watch it. It's like the 80s ninja testing video with like the guy with the pointy shoulder gi, and the guy in the background holding the giant like staff, and the dude's doing like front rolls over his opponent that he knocked down, and everybody's watching and clapping. I'm surprised there's not like just heavy metal just pumping out while they're doing this. Like anytime I see it, anytime I see it, I'm like, dude, I gotta watch that again. Like that's my favorite like off the wall video for my guilty pleasure. But yeah, dude, I will still pull up old MMA fights, like you said, Pancrase, or even like the Brazil Vale Tudo fights where they're, Vanderlei's got a guy in the corner, he's headbutting him until he knocks him out.
Mm-hmm. It's crazy. I know that MMA had to evolve. I know that there wasn't much of a choice. It was either like big, fade to obscurity and be sort of like viewed as human cockfighting or whatever, or have some consistent rule set across the board and include some kind of a sanctioning body in that and so forth. And, and so as a result, now we have Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is incredibly popular, right? Yeah. I really don't think Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is popular without MMA becoming, a household phenomenon. I just don't think so. I don't think the people that are making a career out of Jiu-Jitsu now, and it's a growing number. It's still a small number, but it's definitely growing exponentially. It wouldn't be there if it hadn't been for the rules. But at the same time, right on the heels of that thought, I was like, well, yeah, but, there was something pure about you can do anything. Let's see what happens, right? You can headbutt your partner, your opponent. You can stomp the back of their head if they're down there. You can 12-6 elbow them. You can knee them to the top of the head, right? So what you saw, like Igor Vovchanchyn and Mark Coleman, for instance, right? Knees to the top of the head to finish the fight, right? Or Fujita with Coleman. Coleman got his comeuppance eventually, right? He had the same thing happen to him, and lived by the knees to the head, died by the knees to the head, I guess. Headbutts were just fantastic. Everything short of basically biting and eye gouging. Of course, who can forget Keith Hackney and Joe Son, just pounding on his balls for like a minute and a half.
Dude, after it came out, I was like, about him like being Joe Son involved in that like sexual assault. I was like, good man, dude. I don't feel bad for that whatsoever. But yeah, like just holding him down and just punching him right in the balls just repeatedly. I think that
he was in Austin Powers too. I don't know if you remember that or not, but he was the guy that like took his hat off and threw it. He was like an assassin or something.
Random Task. That was his name.
Isn't that ridiculous?
That is, man.
How do you remember that? That's pretty wild.
I liked Austin Powers a lot. I was like, Oddjob's the dude from what was it, Goldfinger? And then I was like, oh shit, yeah,
right,
yeah, Random Task. They just changed his name a bit. But yeah, so yeah, those are the old days of MMA, and I mean, like you said, it had to evolve, man. Everybody could talk about like the glory days and blah blah blah, but yeah, also in that same video, I was talking about watching Vanderlei Silva headbutt this dude until he knocked him out. Like he turned around and like his eyebrow was hanging down, like almost into his like orbital area, like his eye area. So I'm like, holy shit, man! Like you gotta get that stitched up, or
Yeah, and you look back at those moments, and it's apparent. It's in retrospect, it's obvious that the sort of cleanup had to happen with the rules being consistent and everything. Still, man, there's always going to be a big part of me that's like, yeah, but they can't headbutt each other. How do you even know this? This isn't a real fight. Like, I know it's still a fight, right? Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
Like, if you're in a boxing match, you're in a fight, and people say if you're in a jiu-jitsu match, you're in a fight too. And I'm like, mixed feelings about that. I think kind of, sort of, more like if you're in a judo match, you're in a fight because, man, being thrown really, really hurts. It's hard to avoid being thrown in a judo tournament. But, amazing to think about that. But still, I harken back and I'm like, would it be any different if you were allowed to do some of these things that you're allowed to do? Would somebody like Mark Kerr, still be just the best in the world at fighting, at beating people up?
Shit.
Or would sort of the modern MMA have found a way around that? It's definitely possible. I just don't know what the answer to that is, and unfortunately now we just probably can't know.
Yeah, I was gonna say, unfortunately, a person like Mark Kerr defeated himself. Like that was a rough story for him. But at the same time, like, a guy who was that athletic, who was that good at wrestling, who just dominated people, I feel like even in modern MMA, like, I think he still would have done very well. I mean, look at Ben Askren this last fight. Now, granted, I might have disagreed with what happened, with one, Herb Dean calling the fight that Robbie Lawler was out, and two, like, not stopping it after Robbie Lawler just dumped him on his head and started punching him in the face. But, Ben Askren's a very just straight wrestler, and, I think he really got lucky on that one. But, no, I mean, like you're saying, everybody has kind of just the same thing. Everybody's a wrestler, grappler with striking ability. And, I mean, you'll get, like, I guess, like, kind of the shift in power, like, if you're creating a character in whatever video game, like, we'll say Skyrim or whatever, you can have a little bit more in your striking, but you got to have a little bit less in, like, your, like your takedown defense or something like that. Well, shit, maybe just like the actual UFC create a character thing. There you go. But, it's, it is kind of just hitting for me. Like, I'm like, dude, we see all the same type of stuff. People get taken down. They both wrestle. They get up, strike, the people that really stand out are the ones who can do the other stuff pretty well, but have like one thing they can do that's just amazing.
Yeah, I think you're seeing a lot more specialization now than you saw before, and so that's good. But at the same time, it's sort of like a tug between. I think you're seeing more specialization because there are just like elite athletes in there who are the best of the best at what they do, and that's a necessary thing in order to win fights. But you're also seeing the homogeneity aspect of it too, where, like, okay, you're a jiu-jitsu guy and you want to do, you're going to spend some time on boxing, you're going to spend some time doing some Muay Thai, probably working on your takedown defense maybe, so it's all going to end up like looking quite similar. You're not going to have a Chemo versus a Mark Kerr. It's just not going to happen in today's world. You're going to have two very well-rounded guys who are, one person probably has a very high-level skill set, like a Ben Askren with wrestling or whatever, maybe a Robbie Lawler with his hands,
Yeah.
Of course, Lawler has really good wrestling too, not on Askren's level. I wish I could say Askren has good hands, but I can't really say that I've seen any evidence of that yet. But it's going to probably, over time, you get better at stuff if you just kind of keep doing it, right?
No, that's true. You do. And yeah, I was thinking back, like, you have certain people who are good at it, and like the old MMA stuff, like, you will see pockets of it in like Ryzen or whatever, like Gabby Garcia fighting some 40-year-old woman. Like, you're still gonna have your freak show fights. Like, just that was bad. I felt
mostly
bad.
In Japan.
Yeah, that's it though.
Most of they haven't lost that, right? There's, the national sport in Japan is sumo, if I'm not mistaken. And sumo is quite a spectacle. It's not, baseball is kind of like, okay, we're going to sit around for 3.5 hours and we're going to watch some guys, and every now and then there'll be something to look at.
Yeah.
Sumo is like, holy crap, watch out. There's a giant person slamming another giant person around. You can feel the ground shaking, I just think there's something very different about the culture of those two places.
Up until recently, right, I saw this video on Sumo because, I get stuck in my YouTube rabbit hole as I usually do. And it was like top 10 knockouts in Sumo. I'm like, what? Like, I thought these guys just picked each other up and threw them out of a circle. No, when they, like, engage, like, if they're going to grab and they slip and they hit the dude in the face, like, and knock them out, that's a win, too. So there's, like, crushing knockout. So imagine, like, how big are these dudes? Like 400 pounds? Like,
yeah.
And they're they're like hundreds of years of just like the Japanese figure out how to make these giant people just move fast and stupidly strong, but they're giant. It's just like it's a paradox, and it's amazing. Now imagine that 400 person dude. You put your hands down, he comes up and he goes to grab your, like put his hand on your shoulder to block you, but hits your face instead. Oh my God, dude. It sounded like it was soul crushing, like hits. And
that's quite a lot of power. The only thing that you can really liken it to is there are some elite level NFL football players, I think, in America of a similar build and of surprising athletic prowess, like, a guy will be like a 400-pound linebacker or something, and you're like, how did he get from there to there that quickly?
Yeah.
Right? Not just in terms of running, but like, hand speed and it's quite a lot going on. I'm watching that Sumo video right now, by the way.
Oh yeah.
I couldn't help myself.
I think
pretty crazy to
the
watch.
Sound like really sets it home because, the Japanese when you're watching it are like, like in Pride, everybody's really quiet. And then, like, I remember, like, Sakuraba jumping over somebody and stomping on their head, and everybody goes, whoa! Like, just like that. Every time somebody just gets their lights turned out by Sumo. It was one of the craziest things I've seen, because I had no idea that you could, end the fight in Sumo by, like, an accidental KO or whatever. But, like, I definitely would not want to get hit by one of those guys, man. That, like you said, you got, like, a 400-pound linebacker who now is going to tackle me on top of that. Like, I'm not built for that, man. I'd die pretty easily.
I think I would pull guard right away with these guys. That's my only conclusion here. And they'd be like, hey, what are you doing, tiny person? You're not allowed to do that. And they'd be like, yeah, you're going to need to drag me out of this ring now, because I'm not going to stand up with these guys. There's no way.
Hell no, dude.
I know pulling guard for like self-defense seems like a silly idea, but I'm not standing up with these guys. Not a chance. No way. I'm not going to double leg them. What am I going to do?
They're just
low single a Sumo guy. I don't think so.
That sprawl would kill you probably. Just like if they just flattened out like E Honda, just smash you in the ground. Like even we had a really big guy at our gym, and he I really commended him for getting in there and trying. He was about 400 pounds, and I had him in my guard, and I'm a bigger guy, and that still was probably one of the most excruciating like pains I've felt in like jiu-jitsu. So I can't imagine like a sumo wrestler who's actively like he's been training in this grappling for a while who's just like, all right, man, you want to pull guard? I'll get in your guard. God.
Yeah, it's rough, man. There's nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. It's like Bob Sapp and Minotauro. Nogueira was he's going to be in there for a long time, pretty much no matter what he did.
Oh man, Nogueira really survived that there in armbar. I'm like, that was kind of like just weather the storm until Bob Sapp gets tired, and then hopefully you get him. Kind of like I think when Crocop broke his eye orbital. He was just running from Bob Sapp was like trying just to knock his head off, and he's just like, oh shit, I gotta do something. Oh my god, and hit him, and then that was an amazing shot and put him down. But that is definitely like some of those guys are just like you gotta weather the storm, man.
It's Loki versus the Hulk, right? The Hulk goes and he's like, wham, 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 wham. And the Hulk eventually, he's like, after 4 or 5 hits, he's like, well, this little thing here is obviously dead and not fighting back anymore, and I'm bored and I'm tired and I'm going to walk somewhere else. That's what Bob Sapp did in Minotauro for sure, right? He slammed him like 52 times and put him on his neck twice. Like, oh man, that was so brutal to watch. Pile drivers, and eventually just like, which is sort of how every fight after that with Bob Sapp went. Like he watched all the guys, and eventually he just lost his win. He came out really, really strong, and then he got winded and lost.
Yeah, everybody figured that one out. I was like, oh shit, we just have to wait like a good 3 minutes. Like Bob Sapp
but
picks
before
us
they
up
figured
and
it
throws us
out,
around. Oh yeah, he was
before they figured it out. It was really fun. Was it Ernesto Hoost? I think Bob Sapp knocked out in one of their fights. He got a stoppage. I mean, this is kickboxing, right? This is not supposed to happen. This isn't MMA, right? MMA, you'd be like, well, yeah, maybe Sapp would beat Ernesto Hoost, but you're watching in kickboxing, like, no, there's zero chance of that happening. No, it turns out Bob Sapp was capable of killing people at that point.
And he was like loved over there as well. Like, I think another guilty pleasure of mine that has nothing to do with martial arts is Japanese commercials with like MMA fighters in them. So like, the Mark Coleman, Vanderlei Silva, like shaving.
Oh man, Sweetie O Banana. Do you remember Sweetie O Banana?
With Mark Coleman.
I mean, I sincerely doubt that very many of the listeners of this podcast are going to understand that, but maybe the Sweetie O Banana thing is on YouTube, so people can actually at least look if they're listening. Because that was amazing. Amazing.
I think one of the still pictures they had of him, like behind the scenes in the banana costume, he looked like he was just gonna blow his brains out. He's like, "This is fucking terrible." It's like, it's a paycheck.
You remember when Mark Coleman won the Pride Grand Prix in 2000? Spoiler alert.
Bounced off.
And then he jumped over the fence. He didn't make it all the way over.
Bounced off the top rope and fell back.
That was amazing.
That was a wild time. Like, MMA was crazy back then, dude. And I will say, I think something now. I get why the UFC does it, because they have just this stable of fighters now. From all men, women, weight classes. They're pretty stacked right now. You can argue like, oh, there's nothing maybe like in the top 10 or top 15 of like heavyweight. Everybody talks about top 10's not that exciting. Yeah, but there's also like 40 other guys ready to fight in heavyweight. So they have events like every week. Like, they'll have fights every weekend almost. But back in the day,
I think that's the problem they're running into, as well. Like, or at least with people that have been in the game and paying attention for a long time. There's like you said, there's a fight every weekend. What are you supposed to get excited about anymore? At what point do you get excited? Is it when there's a title fight? Well, there's a title fight every event.
Yeah.
Is it when there's a fighter that you like to see? Well, I mean, I don't know. There's not really any fighters that I like to see anymore.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, because it used to be UFC would be 1 month, Pride would be the other month, and then like my buddy'd come running into class. He's like, Rob, this month is UFC and Pride. Holy shit! So you you get you spend $100, but you get like 2 amazing MMA events, in 1 month. I mean, granted, you get paid for beer and pizza and all that, but it's still like, dude, I get to do this twice a month. This is awesome. And then eventually it was UFC's doing one every month. Now Pride's doing one every month, and then UFC's just like, we're going to do one every week. There you go.
It was absolutely an event. That's what I'll say. We all got together, and not only did we watch the events because they were awesome, it was super fun to watch, but also because you learn by watching these events, like what the techniques the fighters were using were.
Yeah.
I mean, this is like in a time when the video instruction was quite sparse. There wasn't a whole lot of ability to learn. This is way before YouTube and all that. So it's not like you could just look stuff up on the internet. You could, but you would find stuff like the Fighter's Notebook, or printed and written kind of stuff. There was some early things, and I think that circling back a little bit to BJJ Path, there were some early websites that had GIFs on them back when it took a long time to load the page, but you could see the GIFs, or you would see maybe pictures, right? Like there would be the format was maybe Stephen Kesting got involved around this time, or maybe this is a little before his day too. But you'd have like a sort of a tutorial where you'd be like how to do the move, like a magazine article on the internet. And I mean, reading magazine articles is another good way to learn techniques. I guess that was sort of cool. But basically, those were your options. You would go and you would scroll through and see a picture of a move, try to figure out how it worked, see some words along with the picture that sort of kind of describes it, right? It was like, in this move, so-and-so is underneath his opponent, and then he does this thing, and he gets on top, and you look at the picture, and you're like, okay, there's like 4 pictures missing from this, and like you can't actually see because there's only one angle for the picture and things like that, So I don't know. I guess I've been paying attention to how techniques are shown for a really long time. And as a consumer, I think I understand better than most what people need to see in order to get the techniques. So try to take that knowledge and kind of plunk it in here, and all the old MMA watching where that was like what we were doing. We'd sit on the edge of our seat and be like, oh, what did he just do? I think he did this. Let's try to practice that at the gym. We go back and we watch it on video or something.
Yeah.
Those days are thankfully behind us. It was a fun and energetic time, but it was not a very good time for learning. The learning process itself was not very well developed in jiu-jitsu. The structure, there wasn't structure. Gyms didn't have curriculums and stuff like that like they have today. Yeah. Formats for classes were just, let's go beat each other up for 4 hours or whatever, 2 or 3 times a week. I mean, that's really how it kind of was. You'd stay on the mats for a long time, and it would be just a few times a week usually, because that's all you could really get in there for, unless you had a freestanding structure for your jiu-jitsu school, which was, talking about like late 90s, early 2000s. To me, that was very uncommon to find.
Yeah, it was just a bunch of clubs and stuff, because I remember talking to somebody about it, and he was like, yeah, we just go, like, out. It was like a church would let them train in, like, the grass next to it. I'm like, dude, that's kind of wild. But, I mean, it's a place to train. It's a place to do
you would take what you could get, right? If there was a kung fu school that did a little bit of grappling, and that was all that there was in your area, you would take it. You would be like, okay, well, do we at least get to play around on the ground some? And they're like, yeah, okay, cool. I'll do your bullshit for them for like 2 hours, and then we'll get to play on the ground.
Yeah.
I was really fortunate because there was a judo club in town, and judo club actually had good groundwork for judo. So I got a really nice place to start, even before there were good jiu-jitsu schools to train at and stuff like that. And jiu-jitsu and judo became, in the Richmond, Virginia area at the time, like really closely intertwined anyway. There were lots of people that were doing both. It was a really good time to be involved with both arts back then. But things have changed a whole lot now. There's so many more options for people.
Yeah.
These kids, they don't know how rough we had it back then.
I had to drive 30 minutes just to find a school, and that was close. Yeah.
Yeah. And we trained barefoot. Oh, wait, we
still do. Yeah. In the snow or whatever. Yeah. For some reason, it was obscenely cold in the summer and way too hot in the winter. Like, I never understood that in the gym. Nah, I'm just kidding.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was uphill both ways. You had to go through the belt gauntlet just to get on the mat each time.
Yeah, well, at least one person quit every class because either
they
were
literally.
Injured. That actually did happen almost all the time.
That's not hyperbole. Like really, like people got injured like crazy back then. So that's another thing that's gotten a lot better with jiu-jitsu. The ability, this sort of idea that you don't really have to kill one another in order to get good at this stuff. And in fact, killing each other might be the wrong approach to getting better at this stuff. Interesting.
My shoulders really would have appreciated that approach about 10 years ago.
Yeah.
I'm just dying over here.
Yeah, my elbows and knees agree with that assessment. I think that the future is good. It's not that jiu-jitsu is going to be easy on your body necessarily. The net benefits to your health are tremendous because of your cardiovascular health, improvements that you get from that. And overall, like, dietary fitness, you're going to be in good shape and all that kind of stuff. So those benefits are still there, but it's still going to be a grinding, kind of a thing that you do to your body, right? Like your joints are still going to suffer, but we know how to be a lot safer than we used to be. And like, hygiene and cleanliness and like skin infections and stuff like that. Like it's a whole new ball game now, right? Like we actually are, everybody is sort of on board with, okay, there are skin infections in jiu-jitsu. We need to immediately go and wash our uniform when we're done training, and take a shower right away. And there's some other things that we want to be sure to the culture in the gym is keeping the mats clean and things like that. And you see a lot more of that now, certainly than you saw 20 years ago and more than 10 years ago too. 10 years ago I did a lot of traveling and taught a lot of seminars at various gyms, and there were not a lot of clean gyms. That's all I can really say.
Yeah, I remember going to one gym, and I had my Fuji gi will be with me till the day I die, I think, because it just just has been hanging on forever. I've had it since white belt, and I'm still using it. And it's been kept pretty clean thanks to my wife. She's really like a laundry specialist. I don't mean that in a sexist way. She's just way smarter than I am. I just dump soap and water into something and hope it works. But I went to this club, and we started with shrimping, and I got up and I started walking back. They're like, "Oh shit, somebody didn't clean the mats today." I'm like, "What do you mean?" And I look on the back, like over my shoulder, and my gi is gray now on the back. Like completely gray.
Whoa.
Yeah, it was like, oh fuck, man, I better take a bath in turpentine or something when I get home just to be on the safe side and wash the gi.
Yeah, that's extreme. And it's like, that the microbes are invisible, right, to the naked eye. So it's like if you see something, there's a lot of them there.
Yeah.
There's a lot of them there. So it's definitely urgent to get cleaned up at that point.
Yeah, and I mean, like, I kind of wish that like bar rescue. I always joke about bar rescue because John Taffer's just a fucking intense human being on TV. On TV, I guess. I haven't met the guy in person. Now he's doing like couples rescue, which, dude, I would say stick to what you know, man. Like, I'll teach jiu-jitsu, but I'm also not going to teach you how to like knife fight or whatever. That's not what I know how to. Or actually, that's kind of like in combat sports. I'd be like, I'll teach you jiu-jitsu, but I can't teach you how to split an atom. That's completely outside my wheelhouse. But like somebody doing a show like that for gyms, like that would be kind of interesting. But maybe just with the martial arts, like people like, oh yeah, this is our bathroom. It hasn't worked in 3 years, but so we use it as a changing room. Like, fuck, really?
We need like a queer eye for the straight guy for jiu-jitsu school, or like maybe one of those makeover, like a house makeover show. I don't know, Property Brothers, is that one?
I
think
guess
that is. Where they look at a house and they're like, well, we could do this, that, or the other, and they go to fix it up, and it's always a family that looks at something and they're like, we have a $30,000 budget and we want to buy this $1.5 million house, and
how does that
somehow
work?
They always make it work on those shows. I don't really understand it.
Jesus. Yeah, I never understood that either. I'm like looking at like, I'm gonna buy a house. They're like, I'm like, this is my budget. They're like, how about this house? I said, no, this is my budget. Like, I don't want the $700,000 house. I don't want a $500,000 house. Just give me what I can afford. And they're like, all the memes of like, I make balloon animals and I collect, like fossilized pencils, and our budget is $2.3 million. Like, are you in the mob, or like, what are you doing? Are you selling drugs? Like, I want to know. I want to know how they can do that.
Are you a United States senator? What is happening? How do you have so much money?
Your salary says this, but you've got millions of dollars. What the hell happened? Ooh, man.
Right.
Podcast is getting political. All right, we got to stop it here now. No, but, Andrew, I really do appreciate you coming on the show today. And definitely before we leave, it's BJJ Path. Can you give the guys or our listeners the address so they know how to get to it and hopefully start using it? Because I truly think it's probably one of the best online video encyclopedias out there.
Well, I appreciate that, Rob. That's awesome, man. Just go to bjjpath.com. If you're sure you want to get signed up, it's $10 a month, $9.99 a month for the next through August, through the end of August for sure. The price will go up in September, but you'll be grandfathered in if you sign up now. If you're not sure you want to sign up, though, there's some free articles. If you just go in, I believe you have to create a profile to do this. You can do that. If you're uncomfortable even creating a profile, you don't have to do that to see the free articles, though. If you follow me on social media, I will post free articles all the time, like on Reddit or various different jiu-jitsu groups on Facebook, things of that nature. A couple of different other forums too, Sherdog, the Underground Forum, that stuff. But, check it out, see if you like it. If you don't like it, it's not like you're hooked in for life or anything like that. Every penny of this money that I get from subscriptions is going to go back into the website right now. Eventually, the whole idea is to make this thing better, to improve it over time, to listen to people, and to give people ultimately what they want. And right now, it's more or less a static encyclopedia of jiu-jitsu. It does have sort of an idea of the things that you're looking for. But eventually we want to do more with it. We want to have more interaction, ability to ask black belts questions and things like that. And no matter what we add, we're not going to ask you for more money if you're signed up now, because you're really helping us out a lot by helping us build this thing. So that's pretty much it. That's my elevator pitch for BJJPath.com.
That's a good one, and I'm excited to see what's going to do. I'm excited to see what's going to do in the future, man. I really am. Is like you said, you are active in a lot of communities. I do see you post up on the underground and as well as Reddit, so your face everybody knows. So I think it's going to take off. I think it's going to be a good thing for you, man. So once again, Andrew, I really do appreciate you coming on the show, man. I had a great time, especially reminiscing about old MMA and talking about sumo wrestlers knocking each other out. So thanks again for coming on the show, man.
You never know where the conversation is going to go, Rob. I appreciate it, man. Thank you for the opportunity here.
Anytime. And ladies and gentlemen, this has been another episode of Big Jiu-Jitsu. Don't forget to go to our website, bjjshow.com, and find some old episodes you want to listen to. And don't forget to check out our sponsors, Trap and Roll Soap Company, excuse me, Tape Armor, and Rolls Gear. And don't forget, we are a member of the Podbros Podcast Network, and go to podbros.com, find another episode or another podcast you might want to listen to. I'm Rob. We'll catch you guys next time.